Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode.
Yeah, welcome back.
We might have a little bit of a spicy one for you this time.
I don't think it's spicy. I think it's it's disappointing, but not because we did anything wrong.
To be clear, this has nothing to do with us. Yeah, we took some time to go to the actual movie theater to see a new release for you. So
yeah,
hopefully you enjoy that. And, you know, it was nice to get out of the house after last episode talking about how we've basically just been on the couch.
Yeah, but then we only really went out of the house to do this, and the rest of the time we've been there watching
more TV. Yeah.
Specifically, we've been really into two separate things lately.
Yeah.
The Tournament of Champions,
which is a Food Network
show,
hosted
by Guy Fieri.
Yep.
And
Scoops Majumdar.
Sir Scoops Majumdar. And then we've also been, like, real into Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
You've never watched it.
I'm watching it for the first time. I've seen a couple random episodes here or there that I would, like, catch on reruns or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm starting from the beginning now.
Yeah.
And loving it.
It's great. No, they've both been fantastic time killing things.
Yes, and they're basically the same show, just in different fonts.
Okay, how?
Food is all about profiling.
I don't even want to know what you mean. No, they're really, really fun. Tournament of Champions, I guess, was running since, like, 2020, and it has, like, 5 seasons or whatever. Yeah. We just got through, I think, season 3, and every season has gotten bigger in some way.
Right, more and more chefs.
Yeah, it's more and more chefs. Like, the first season, it was just 16 of, like, probably the most well-known chefs from, like, the Food Network sphere of cooking.
Yeah.
And then the second season, it was still 16 chefs for the main bracket, but they did this, like, thing where to fill out the last 2 spots, they had wild card spots on the east and west side is how they've decided.
Because they're doing it like a tournament.
Yeah.
You know.
So they had, like, a whole separate bracket just to figure out who's going to be
in the bracket.
In the bracket for the main thing. And then the third season, now we've expanded it out to 32 for the entire bracket.
So everybody's in the bracket. There's just a lot more of a bracket now.
Which is funny because, like, when we were going into season 2, I was saying they should just open this up. Yeah. There's more than 16 like
great chefs.
Personality chefs is like how I like to refer to them. Not that they're not good at cooking, but like you primarily know them because they're on Food Network.
Right. Yeah. They're famous.
Yeah, they're famous in that way. But so I was like, they should open it up to 32, but instead they just, because I think it was going into COVID in 2021. Oh, Steve. You may hear some sounds from Steve again. This might be a thing. It's getting into the warmer season, so she's more active now.
Yeah.
And so
she's making a break for her little bath.
We have her right in front of the window, and I think sometimes she can see the grass outside, and she's like, freedom awaits me.
She just wants to chomp.
I'll have to let her outside and eat the dandelions. Anyway, but I was saying that they should open it up to the 32, but instead all they really did was they changed the way the money was being distributed to where, like, the chefs were, like, most celebrity things where, like, the celebrities aren't winning the money themselves.
Right.
They're winning the money to give to, like, a business or a charity fund. And then season 2 of the show, they were competing, and if you won against your opponent in the matchup, you got like $10,000 to give to whatever restaurant you wanted to give.
Because they were, the restaurant industry was struggling.
Right. And then the final prize was like $25,000 that I don't remember if they got to keep it themselves or whatever. But in season 1 and 2, the best prize that we haven't mentioned was a new car.
A new car!
Like I think season 1 was a truck and season 2 was like an SUV or something.
And it gets me so much because I know that the reason that is the case is just because it's a sponsor for the show. But all these chefs are like really into it. Like
you've never heard Chef Kat Cora talk about like a GMC before.
I can't wait to get in that truck and cruise with my ladies. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you can buy you're an extremely accomplished professional celebrity chef. You don't need a new car like that.
Every time they would have these little like personal one-on-one interviews with them, and they're sitting in the chair, and the producer's talking to them from behind the camera, and they're like, so what do you think about the truck? Like, oh yeah, and the truck is going to be so great for just like driving around. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Stop. It would be so helpful for my restaurant. I've worked in restaurants. You just get the food delivered to you. You don't personally have to go pick it up. There are some that do that, but like it ain't you ain't doing it. You own like 14 restaurants.
Honestly, the way that they were all talking about the truck kind of reminded me of back when I was in college, and you would have to do discussion board posts. Oh god, where it's like
that's
the like
me right now.
the sort of fake exaggerated enthusiasm where you're just like, yes, Guy Fieri, a truck would be helpful and nice to have. Yep. And also, when I think about trucks, I think freedom. It's just like, thanks for the insight.
Yep. Exactly. The whole time you're trying to meet the minimum word count. You're like 49 and 50 cents.
Got it. Don't even put a period in there. Just go.
Just go. I'll take the 1 point hit for my not having spell checked this. So I can be done with it. But yeah, no, in season 3, they finally got rid of the vehicle. We're no longer giving a vehicle, and we have upped the grand prize to $100,000.
And we're not giving any of it to charity anymore because that shit's lame.
They got all they needed. Like 16 distinct restaurants got
a couple thousand
like $10,000
to
operate for like a month or whatever. And they said that's probably enough.
Yeah, that'll do it. We did our job.
But no, season 3 was pretty wild. The thing with opening it up to 32 was that like we didn't have people like Gordon Ramsay on the show or anything like that. And Richard Blais was in season 1, but I don't think he's like come back to it.
No, I think he did some judging on another season, but then I haven't seen him again.
Maybe, I don't remember. But like, so we're not really getting a lot of like those, like there's no Jamie Oliver or anybody on that. So in order to fill out the 32 spots on this bracket, we're now like grabbing people that have like, they're like known locally, like in LA, and nobody's heard of them outside of that scene.
They were on one episode of Chopped, and they're like, "Get in here, buddy."
There was like one season of a food truck based cooking competition show that somebody won.
There was way more seasons of that.
Oh, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, the point is like they got that guy in here, and like they're good chefs. Don't get me wrong. And like the whole thing with
no disrespect to them, because we know you're listening.
Well, and the whole thing with the show is that like you would think somebody that's like super high level cooking would beat out any of the lower ranked chefs, if you want to put it that way. But they use this thing called the randomizer, which Guy Fieri likes to make a big deal about.
Yep.
And it's basically just like a big multi-slot wheel thing, and you go up and you have like your protein, your produce, your cooking style, a piece of equipment, and the time that you have to cook it in. And he just spins it, and whatever it lands on, both the chefs have to do that. Right. And so the randomizer, everyone calls it in the show like the equalizer, because like you can be really good, but then like if you have to cook with like
something you don't use,
that you've never even heard of before or whatever, then it can like really equal out the playing field. And we do see this theme within each season of the show where like the 8th seed in the bracket takes out the number 1 seed. That was my favorite thing from season 1. Is they made this big hype about Alex Guarnaschelli coming on there, and she gets taken out by this like new up and coming chef
who had been on Guy's Grocery Games a couple times.
And just gets absolutely just.
And what did he say his cooking style was? Urban
like eclectic.
Something completely fake.
Like we looked it up, and it's like it's not a thing. It's not a style of cooking. My best guess is that it. Like, he's come up with a new style that allows him to make whatever he wants.
Right.
So that he's not locked into, like, if you are, like, really good at Thai food or Italian food, then you're, that chef or whatever. So, like, not knocking him, whatever. It's just funny.
He's hustling.
He's out there doing it. But, Alex Guarnaschelli got knocked out of the thing, and then she wasn't in season 2 at all.
She took a little while to recover.
And then she came back for season 3, but to judge it.
Yes.
And I think, I have no proof of this, I think she got pissed off that she lost and was like, I'm not competing in this stupid show again. I don't have to do this. So she just came back to judge. But it's very good, very good. If you have a way to watch Food Network shows like HBO, I think is what we watch it on.
HBO Max, one of my favorite subscriptions, honestly.
Then I recommend it if you're into cooking shows. If you're not, it's still pretty fun because you get to watch Guy Fieri give everyone a nickname regardless of if they want it or not.
And some of them are really bad, like Scoops.
Scoops. Oh, that's a whole conspiracy thing too, because when the show first starts, Guy's calling Simon Majumdar is his name. He's really well known. He's kind of prolific in the cooking scene. And he normally just judges stuff and he writes books and stuff about it. But when the show first starts, he's calling him Sir Simon Majumdar. And we looked this up because he is British.
And we're like, is he knighted for real though?
Right. And there is no evidence to suggest that he is actually knighted.
We can neither confirm nor deny.
But he calls him Sir in like every episode. But then there's a distinct change in season 3 where Guy starts to call him Scoops Majumdar.
Sometimes hitting him with the Sir Scoops.
Yeah, sometimes he still hits him with the Sir Scoops. And so I don't know if Guy Fieri knows.
I like to think that Guy Fieri was like, he's British. Of course he's a Sir.
Everyone he meets that's British is a Sir.
And Simon Majumdar is like, please don't say that. Please don't say that.
Oh my god. Yeah, he's sweating bullets as he's copying down the notes from the chef that's cooking. He's like, please don't call me Sir.
Don't do it. Don't do it again.
The queen and or king is going to kill me. Alright, we can talk about Criminal Minds. I'm avoiding talking about the movie for as long
I can
as
tell.
possible.
I think we're almost at a point now where we talk about the trash TV we're watching so much that I think that should have been the podcast we made.
No, it's just occasionally we get real stinkers of movies that I just don't. I'm not looking forward to talking about it. We can talk about it. Let's just talk about it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing is, Imaginary, of course, is the movie that we're talking about. It's a PG-13 new movie. It's a Blumhouse production movie.
Blumhouse.
Raise my fist at you. But, it's the basic idea of it, like kind of how it was presented in terms of the advertising was that there's, a killer teddy bear who's like a little girl's, friend and then turns out to be a murderer or something. And honestly, just looking at the ads, I pretty much knew that it wasn't going to be a great movie. But I still maintained some level of hope, because my hope anytime a movie like this comes out is that even if it's not successful in the sense of being like, oh, this movie like traumatized me, it's so scary and, so powerful or whatever, a horror movie can still be a fun time because it's camp. And it's just like an interesting concept or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I don't know that this movie managed that.
No, this movie is bad on every front.
Yeah.
every conceivable front. It is bad.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that's a personal opinion, because every article I've seen, every review, I mean, it's all pretty...
Well, we were going to try to see it, like, not necessarily on opening night, but, like, shortly around that period. But, you know, we made plans, so, you know, life said LOL and just threw a bunch of shit at us, so we couldn't do that.
Right.
So we had to, like, postpone it for a little bit. And after it was officially released, we started seeing all of these articles and reviews and everyone being like, hey, all this one's hot garbage. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And it kind of, I think, killed both of our motivation to go see it, honestly. But because we wanted to see a new movie, we wanted to review a new movie for the show and everything. Plus, you and I just like going to the movies.
I mean, really the only time I go to the movies is to see a horror movie.
Yeah.
And so I always like getting my big bucket of popcorn.
I do think we messed up and we didn't go see The Beekeeper when it was in theaters.
It's already gone from theaters.
I don't think it's playing anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I'm probably going to live to regret that decision.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jason Statham, I love you.
You let him down. You're his number one fan. Or you were.
I was.
Now you're not.
Now I'm nothing to him.
But yeah, you can go see some stuff by yourself if you want. I don't particularly need to see that.
Oh, but you do.
Yeah.
It can't be worse than what we just watched.
That is true. That's very fair.
Anyway.
But, yeah. I figure we can kind of get into some of the basics of the movie if you want to, and then we'll talk more.
We'll treat it with respect up until we have to talk about our personal feelings
until we dunk on it.
And then I'm going to drag this movie to hell.
So, this movie was directed by Jeff Wadlow, and co-written by Wadlow and then two others, Greg Erb and Jason Ormland, I think is how you say his last name.
Okay.
Jeff Wadlow this is not his first rodeo. He did I think it was called Truth or Dare. It's another horror movie. He also did, I think, Kick-Ass 2 or something like that. He's done a lot of TV as well. He's both a writer and a director for TV. So, he's fairly established. This movie, I don't know what his career is going to look like after this, but...
You said this wasn't his first rodeo, and I really was about to be like, you could have fooled me.
It was bad.
This looked like a directorial debut.
Yeah.
And not a good one.
So that was and obviously this was a Blumhouse produced movie as well, which I think we're going to talk a little bit more about Blumhouse recently because obviously there's such a titan in horror right now, and I think there was a time where they were kind of like the golden child, and it's sort of falling off, which is unfortunate. But in terms of the cast, we have DeWanda Wise, who is playing Jessica, who's our main character. Mm-hmm. That character is married to Max, who is played by Tom Payne. And then Tom Payne's character, Max, has two children from a previous marriage. He has Alice, who's played by Piper Braun, and Taylor, who's played by Tegan Burns. And then there's also a neighbor babysitter character named Gloria, who is played by Betty Buckley. There's a few other characters in the movie, of course, but those are kind of the main players that we spend the most time with. So the basic idea of this movie, of course, we have this blended family of Jessica and Max getting married, Max having these two children from a prior marriage, and they decide to move into Jessica's childhood home. And she hasn't been there since she was quite young. I think since she was 5-ish.
Something like that.
And we learned that her mom died around that time. Her dad kind of went had a nervous breakdown. He's inpatient. I'm unclear whether that we see her dad. I'm unclear whether that was psychiatric inpatient or something like an assisted living. I don't
It's
really
an
know.
Assisted living home, but they don't really get into the specifics.
Yeah. So he's been out of her life for a long time, but they decide, hey, we're a family now. We're going to move into this house. We're going to start over. It's going to be a great thing for all of us. Started every horror movie ever. And soon after arriving in the home, the youngest daughter, Alice, discovers this teddy bear brown teddy bear with a little, bow tie or whatever, and she names him Chauncey. And she is kind of like, she sort of has this like an immediate bond with him, and it seems like she sort of built this imaginary friend of like Chauncey talks to her and they play games together, and they're very close. And then over time it seems like Chauncey, what started out as something that seemed innocent, turns into something more sinister as Chauncey is kind of urging her to do dangerous things and, causing all this like strife and mischief and stuff. So that's the basic prompt of the movie, and a lot of it is tying back to our main character Jessica's own childhood. She lacks a lot of memories of her childhood, so as she's moving back into this house and seeing this journey that Alice is on, she's remembering things about her own childhood, and she's seeing some similarities that are, disturbing.
Yeah.
And this movie, I think one of the things that I was excited about when I first heard about the movie was, even though it's not necessarily the most like original quote unquote concept of like, a killer toy, like we've seen that before. Yeah. But I think it is a concept that lends itself really well to something that is like campy and fun and really entertaining. Yeah. And there were certainly, I think the movie did at times have a comedic tone that I think was intentional. But then there were also a lot of scenes where characters would say dialogue or do things in a certain way that I don't think was meant to be funny. I think it was meant to be taken at face value as a serious, scary situation, but unfortunately it was really poorly done, so it's just hard to take any of it seriously.
I like, there's that. I also think like character motivations are all over the place. It's hard to understand why characters are doing certain things at certain times, or like why, when they are doing those things, why they're going about doing them in that way. The movie does not adequately explain the rules for how this stuff is supposed to work, which isn't necessarily a problem in a horror movie.
Sure, I kind of like to leave it open.
Supernatural stuff. It's fine if it's vague and the characters don't understand. But the problem is there are scenes in the movie where like the protagonist will figure out how to do something. This is like towards the climax of the movie. They figure out how to do something. It doesn't matter if I spoil this. Towards the end of the movie, they're in
spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers, big spoilers. Towards the end of the movie, they are in like the Never Ever, I think is what it's called. They're in there and they're trying to get out. The way that they came through got closed through some means, and in order to get out, the color blue is very important for this. And so Jessica starts taking random blue objects and like gluing them to a wall to make this like square little doorway. And then it starts to light up so that, and she explains, because somebody's asking like, what are you doing? She's like, imagination. Yeah. The idea being that like imagination rules here, so if she can just imagine there being a door here when she puts all this blue stuff up, then like they can just use it as a door and get out, which is fine, and I understand that. Sure. The immediate question that came to mind when this happened was, why didn't you just imagine yourself with like a shotgun and shoot Chauncey or whatever, or anything else? Yeah. Like, why are we doing anything else? Why don't you just
imagine that Chauncey is the size of an ant?
Yeah, so and that he can't do anything. Yeah. Because like there's also explained earlier before they get into this that there's not just malevolent imaginary friends or beings, that there are good like entities within this area. Right. And they're just, none of them are around.
Well, I don't know if they're in that area. They're from, like, the same...
I guess that's fair, but, realm. Like, I guess my point is that, like, we know this to be the case. Why can't you just imagine a portal opens up and, like, a million good-natured fairies fly out and
hook you up. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's always something really tricky in horror movies. I do think that at times, like the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise struggles with this as well, because once you introduce the concept of like your imagination is a tool and you can imagine things that you need in order to succeed, it's always going to bring up that question of, well, why didn't you just do this? Like, instead of imagining this door, which you may or may not be able to open, may or may not be able to get out safely, why don't you imagine something that's, like, guaranteed to work? Mm-hmm. And, of course, some of that is, you can chalk it up to, like, we're not perfect people, we're acting under stress, you know, whatever. We don't even know if it's going to work.
Freddie happens to pick the most uncreative people
yeah.
in existence, whatever.
But I do think it's a really tough territory to walk down, and I think that's why I was personally disappointed, and I think why this movie isn't successful and was kind of doomed to fail is because they took it in that direction of being so incredibly supernatural.
Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, something like Child's Play, that's a supernatural concept in that there's this serial killer who through voodoo magic has possessed a doll that becomes animated. That's supernatural as well, but there's still some element of it being down to earth because it's like it's still a real person who lived there who has his same personality but is just now trapped in this vessel. So you just have to take this kind of like one leap of serial killer gets transported into this other vessel. That's the only leap you have to take.
Yeah.
But with this one, we have this bear, but there's so many layers to it. Like, later on, we learn that, like, the physical bear that Jessica and Alice are seeing, no one else is seeing. So they see Alice, like, holding air, and they think she's just imagining a friend, you know? Mm-hmm. So then it's like, okay, so the bear wasn't even real. And then it turns into, well, there are these spirits who every child encounters when they're young who are like what we know as imaginary friends. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if the relationship gets severed or something bad happens, then those spirits who are normally good-natured can, like, turn on the child and become malevolent. And so it's like, okay, so now I'm dealing with fairies, other realms of reality, like, what's going on?
No, I think that is definitely part of it. I think there's just so many things about this that don't work, because they're trying to throw basically so much spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
And just trying to pick what sticks. You mentioned earlier that there's moments that get played for laughs, like they are supposed to be funny, but then there's moments that I don't think are supposed to be funny, and yet they are. The acting in this it's atrocious to me. Like, it's not fun to watch it.
Yeah. Even,
like, the lighting of a lot of the sets and everything feels very, like, made for TV, like Agreed. CW or American Horror Story type lighting. The only real scares in the movie are basically jump scares.
Yeah. Which, if you're like me and you startle easily, they'll work on you maybe, but it's not, I mean, even though I am a person who jump scares work on, jump scares are not that kind of thing that, like, I'll sit in bed and, like, not be able to sleep because I'm thinking about it. Like, it only works in the moment, you know, so it doesn't have the staying power that the most iconic horror movies do.
And I mean, like, to be totally fair to this movie, it's PG-13, right? So, like, they can only do so much.
But there are also PG-13 horror movies that are extremely effective.
Right. Well, and this is what I was going to say. Like, PG-13 has never been an automatic disqualifier for horror movies for me. I think there can be really successful things that are PG-13. This is not one of them. Mm-hmm. This plays like what you would expect a PG-13 movie to be, where it is, like, walking right up to the line of kind of being scary and having some good concepts, but then never actually, like, delivering on any of those things. We try not to get, like, into the nitty-gritty of the movie, so we're gonna not do that here either. Right. But I do want to talk about, like, I guess some moments from the movie
I think we should.
Honestly made me laugh. I think, like, everything that I wrote down about this movie, and let's set the scene a little bit. We get to the movie, right?
It's a Thursday at 7 p.m.
We get in there, we get our popcorn. Mm-hmm. Best part.
I get my Pib Extra.
She's got her Pib Extra because it's a long day.
Yeah.
I got a Coke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're happy. We get into the theater. You had asked me earlier in the day, you were like, should I go ahead and buy tickets online for this?
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, I don't think we're in danger of not getting the seats we want.
You were right.
And so you checked at that time and that no tickets had sold. And then you checked just before we left and still no tickets had sold. So we got there and we bought them at the little kiosk that's there. Again, no tickets had sold. So we get our popcorn, we get our drinks, we go sit down in the movie theater. We have the whole theater to ourselves.
There's not another soul in there.
We're talking, the trailers are playing, they're looping it's not the trailers, it's like the commercials before the trailers.
Yeah, because we got there early.
But they're like looping them. We saw the same M&M's commercial like 4 times.
The one with the mime.
Stupid mime.
Awful.
Let's invite Jacques. Let's not invite Jacques.
And
Shut
it's like,
up.
you know what? Yeah, maybe that guy's right.
Maybe he's right. Oh my god. Wow. Not the side I thought you were going to come down on in that.
Hey, you know what? I'm on the right side of history here.
Fuck you, mimes.
Anti-mimes for America.
So we're sitting in there, the movie starts, and it's gotta be like, what, 15 minutes into the movie?
They came in it was at least 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, another couple of people comes in to the movie, and the movie's been playing for a little, so they've missed like the entire like setup
intro
premise.
Exposition.
We're already at the house this is gonna take place in,
they didn't
and like
get
stuff
any
has started
background.
happening. Yeah, they have no idea. They come in and they're sitting like, you know, several rows behind us or whatever. And so I was a little disappointed from that because part of us knew going into this probably wasn't going to be great. But we were going to have a fun time when we realized nobody's going to be in the theater.
Right.
Because now we can just talk through the whole thing. We do whatever we want.
We're not going to do that when other people
I can get up and stretch if I want to.
Yeah.
But as soon as those people walked in, I was like, beans. Now I got to have proper movie etiquette.
I thought the same thing because, like, I never have my phone out during movies because I know it can be distracting. Like, obviously my phone's on silent, but I tend to not even pull it out to, like, look at the time or anything. But when we do the podcast, I usually like to take notes. So I'll write down, like, quotes or just, like, a couple words about a scene so I'll remember for later. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. No one's going to be in here, so I won't be the jerk on my phone. But that got thwarted. Yeah. And then it was really funny because it was pretty soon after they came in, maybe another 15, 25 minutes had gone by, but I saw one of them start walking down the stairs, and I straight up thought they were leaving.
I did too. I thought both of them had gotten up, and we were like, 30 minutes into this movie, or 45 minutes into this movie, and they were like, that's enough. I've seen enough.
I saw what I needed
and I
to see.
honestly wouldn't have blamed them from that. But anyway, so that's kind of the scene setting, is we're basically alone in a theater watching this movie. It starts out... It's pretty heavy on, like, jump scares right at the start of the movie.
We start in a dream sequence, so it's all creepy.
One of my biggest complaints about the movie is that, like, it relies pretty heavily on jump scares at the beginning, and then later in the movie, we don't really have any anymore because they've switched gears to, like, that trying to build tension and dread so we can have the big release and the climax and everything. Except... we don't do that well. I kind of want to jump ahead. I know this is a weird episode just because we're dragging this movie pretty hard. But I wanted to talk really briefly right now about, like, the scariest moment. Yeah. If you have one. Do you? It's okay if you don't.
The scariest moment
or funniest
in this
moment, whatever you want.
I mean, I don't know that there was a scariest moment in this movie for me. Did you have one?
Yeah, I did. Mine was when I pulled out my phone and checked the time and realized that there were 45 minutes left of this fucking movie. I literally,
I need an air horn button.
The movie runtime is 1 hour and 44 minutes, y'all.
Oh, it was a hefty
I pulled my phone out at 7:59, and then I Googled what the runtime of the movie was to find out that it was 1 hour and 44 minlike, and I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you can hear me. I literally went, oh boy. And then another, 10 minutes had passed, and I swear it had been 20 minutes, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah. How are we still in this?
I think the scariest part for me, along the same vein, was this was one of those movies that had, 8 different moments where it could have ended, and then they kept going with being like, but there's still more that we want to show you. And when you're already not enjoying a movie, I already hate that. Like, I think people really struggle with that. And it's really poor directing and editing and writing, in my opinion. But when you're already not enjoying the movie, and then you're like, okay, at least it's over now.
We gotta drag it out.
And then it's like, oh, wait, no, they're still going. Okay, it's definitely over now. Oh, wait, no. There's more. It's gotta be over now. And it still wasn't.
Yeah, the ending of this, just so everyone can kind of gauge what we're feeling on that specific point, is they get out of the Never Ever.
Yeah.
Then Jessica, with her family, is sitting by her father's bedside reading her latest children's story, because she's a successful children's story book writer.
And illustrator. Mm-hmm.
So she's finishing reading this, and she closes it. She's like, "Thanks, Dad. I know what you did for me."
Yeah.
And then she realizes she's not actually out of the Never Ever.
It was a trick. She's still there.
Alice has a burn on her arm, and she knows instinctually to lift the sleeve, and the burn's not there. And she's like, "I'm not out. I'm still in here," or whatever.
Yeah.
So then they all get these weird eyes. Anyway, so that's the fake out ending, because you're like, oh god, we're still in this, huh? So then Taylor...
that's two fake out endings, because you think, oh, they got out and it was happily ever after. Mm-hmm. And then, so that's ending one. And then you're like, oh wait, no, they're still in there. So ending two is actually, this is a bleak ending.
Yes, because they're like,
just now.
You said you'd stay with me forever, you do that, I'll leave them alone, kind of a thing. And she's like resigning herself to do that. Yeah,
she's like, okay, yeah.
Then Taylor shows back up, and she's got her hockey stick or whatever, and she just smacks one of these things in the back of the head. So we're back in. So now we're back into it. Now they have to escape from the Never Ever again. So they do that. The house gets lit on fire, and that's one of my notes, as I just wrote, and they all died in the house fire. Because that would have been fine by me at this point. But no, they get out of that and everything. So that's another ending. And then we fade to black, and then we come back in.
Yes.
And now we're in a hotel lobby. Everyone's there. The three of them, Jessica, Alice, and Taylor, are wrapped in blankets or whatever, in a hotel lobby. And then they're kind of looking around, and then somebody's like, and the camera looks over, and over the back of a cushioned chair, you see the top of a bear's, a stuffed teddy bear's head, Chauncey. Just kind of bobbing back and forth, and they're all freaking out. And then a woman comes over and picks up her son or whatever,
who was just holding a bear,
this stuffed bear, and we cut back to the three of them being like, maybe, and Alice, the youngest of them, the 5-year-old, is like, maybe we should find a different hotel. And then Jessica's like, yep. And then they leave, and as they're leaving, we check back in with the stupid kid.
So they could have just rolled there, but they decided to keep going.
No, we check back in with the stupid kid and the mom, and he's like, Randy, whatever the fuck this stupid animal's name is. He's like, he's getting hungry, and she's like, well, they don't eat because he's not real. And then he's like, he is real, to indicate the cycle hasn't ended. Was this gonna happen again in another family? Which, kid. Obviously, guys, we spent an hour and 43 minutes up to this point discussing that. We know this isn't the end of it, regardless of if you make another movie. It was so infuriating. And when that scene ended, I was so prepared for them to do some stupid other thing, because remember, we didn't check in with Max. Where's the dad?
We're gonna get to see the husband again.
His successful tour.
We're gonna go back into the Never Ever and get one final jump scare. So just awful.
When the credits finally show up, you're like, oh my god, I can stand up and leave.
Yes.
I'm free.
I actually think I thought of another scariest moment.
Okay.
And this scariest moment was one of the worst cases of medical malpractice and breaking of confidentiality.
No, that entire scene when the child psychiatrist shows up is just
so they
so good.
Jessica, this is sort of in the midpoint of the movie, she's realizing that things aren't right with Chauncey, and Alice is acting weird, and she tried to do this thing to hurt herself, but she was like, oh, I didn't want to do it, but Chauncey said I should, so she gets a therapist to come in there who does an interview with her, and it's, you know, a whole thing. And that was also, like, I think that was supposed to be scary, but it really wasn't, because there's a point where Chauncey is, like, sitting in the corner of the room, and then the child and the adult are sitting, like, face to face in front of each other, but the therapist encourages the child to talk directly to Chauncey, so we're seeing the back of her head.
Yeah, like from the therapist's perspective.
Yeah. And we can't really see Chauncey because her outline is covering where he's sitting. And she's having this conversation that sounds like she's having a conversation with herself, where she'll be like, Chauncey, that was really scary when you told me to slam my hand on a nail in the backyard. And then you hear Chauncey be like, but we're friends till the end, or whatever.
Yeah, but it is distinctly, like, you're giving it a lot of credit here. Yeah. It does just sound like Alice is doing a slightly weird voice for Chauncey.
It's her voice, totally.
Yeah.
So you think she's just speaking at both parts. But then at one point, she turns back around to the therapist and she's crying as Chauncey is talking to her. But she's not moving her mouth as Chauncey's talking.
And then one of the best lines in the whole fucking movie comes up.
She just so casually, we cut to her exiting the room, like, we don't address it in the moment at all. And she goes right up to Jessica and she's just like, has Alice taken up any new hobbies recently? Maybe ventriloquism.
And this is what I mean. There's no way that was supposed to be a funny line. That was the funniest shit I've ever heard somebody say in a movie. That's so fucking funny. As your 6-year-old randomly taking up ventriloquism. What are you talking about?
I was like, lady, kids don't just take up ventriloquism.
You mean in the week that they've been here?
In the year of our Lord 2024.
Is she taking up ventriloquism to be so convincing that she turned around and less than a foot from you was able to convincingly throw her voice to a bear? No,
nailing it.
Obviously not.
But that's not even the medical malpractice.
No, it's not. That's just stupid.
The thing that was so crazy to me is that after, you know, like, the psychiatrist and Jessica, like, go to talk in the other room about what happened, and the therapist starts acting all weird, and she's like, I think that I've seen something like this before. And then she just casually flips open her laptop. The video is already queued up and ready to go.
She had it loaded.
Yeah, and it's another child who's saying very similar things about having this imaginary friend and, you know, makes me do things that I don't want to do and all this stuff. And literally, I wrote down in my notes, that's a HIPAA violation, babe, in all caps.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, just, you don't get to...
You can't just do that. That is straight up illegal.
Literally show the full video recording of a confidential mental health session to a random person.
A confidential mental health session of a minor. To a random adult. And her justification kind of being... The police were looking for them. They never found them. As though now it's okay because
he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. So like
matter.
Whatever.
Yeah, but that was some of the most one of my favorite things, because anyone who doesn't know, I'm a licensed social worker and I have some background in like mental health work. So one of my favorite things in TV and movies is seeing how they treat mental health counseling positions in them, because it is never accurate to real life.
It's never accurate.
These therapists are out here wilding in movies and TV, and I'm just like, those are not the actions of somebody who has $60,000 in debt for menial pay and who has to pay another $250 in licensing fees every year.
Those are the actions of licensed therapists that wants to get out of social work.
Yes.
And fast.
These therapists are licensed to slay, but not licensed for anything else.
Yeah.
Oh my my god.
One of my other favorite lines, there's a super minor character, and to kind of preface this, there's a supremely low body count in this movie.
Yeah, there's a body count of 1.
1? Yeah. I mean, you could infer that there is another child that was killed, but it doesn't happen on screen. So we're not counting that. On-screen deaths, kind of. 1. There's 1 in the whole movie. And it is not the character that I'm about to talk about. There's a super minor character when they move into this house. He's like the next door neighbor, this like older kid.
He's
older
also
guy.
a teen, but he's like maybe a couple years older than Taylor.
Yeah, and Taylor's like clearly infatuated with him.
Yeah, she's like, oh my god, he's so hot.
Jessica goes to leave the house to go visit her father in the assisted living home. Because they're close now, and she kind of wants to like reconnect and understand. And I think this is also at the point where like some of the weird stuff starting to happen, so she's like having some
she's like trying to fill in the gaps of her.
So anyway, Taylor invites this guy over.
His name is Liam.
Liam to the house, and he has this little baggie.
He says is
Molly, and that they can get like fucked up on it. Not the words that he uses.
Right,
it's a PG-13 movie. And so they're sitting and watching a movie in the living room, and then he gets up to. He sees like a liquor cabinet thing that they have, and he gets up to go make a drink, but he grabs like 2 bottles and just drops one on the ground and it shatters. So he has to go get towels and clean it up, and some weird stuff happens to him upstairs. But when he first comes over to the house, and this is the moment that I want to focus on, he gets led in by Taylor, and Alice then comes walking up, and she's like, we're not supposed to have strangers in the house. And, says some, like, weird shit about, like, maybe Chauncey should eat him and whatever. But he's, like, trying to be friendly towards Alice.
Right.
And so he leans down, and Alice has been doing this, like, scavenger hunt on behalf of Chauncey to, like, do some ritual thing. It's pretty obvious what it is from the outset. But he leans down, and she has been collecting, like, bugs in a jar. Just dead bugs and putting them in this jar or whatever. And he leans down, and in order to, like, connect with her.
Connect with the youth. Yeah.
And like, hey, we're friends and we're cool. He says, word for word, wait, cool. Is that a jar of bugs? And he is so excited about it.
He's very genuine.
But, like, the volume they play it at is lower than the normal dialogue for the rest of the scene, which makes me think it was ad-libbed. But they also left it in because they thought, no, this is good, let him cook.
Well, did we even see his mouth during that scene?
No, because it's from behind him.
Post.
It's from behind him as he's grabbing the jar from her. So, like, they added it in post, we didn't need that.
It's the most wild thing ever. And the other thing that guy does, related to that guy, that really made me laugh is after he drops the liquor and he goes to get towels, he like runs upstairs, and we see Alice and Chauncey sitting, and they have a viewpoint of the staircase from where they're sitting and drawing or whatever. And Alice is talking to Chauncey, and so she's like, says something to the effect of like, yeah, I don't like him either. Maybe you should eat him.
Yeah.
And you see them like facing each other. And then when it goes back to Chauncey, they have adjusted his posture so that he is doing a full 90-degree turn to stare at the stairs.
He's rubbernecking hard.
like he's passing by a traffic accident on the freeway. He's
slightly leaned forward and just...
He's so perfectly like, what?
Maybe I should eat him.
It's so funny to me.
It's so dumb.
Honestly, that whole section was some of the funniest in the whole movie, because even like when he's in the bathroom, when Liam's in the bathroom, he went up there to get towels.
Yeah.
First off, this man fully pisses on the ground because he stops to use the bathroom and just like, I guess, misses. I don't know.
No, he gets scared.
Oh yeah, he gets startled. So he like gets a little bit of pee on the ground.
Which was dumb, because he gets scared because Chauncey has a little pull thing like Woody does from Toy Story to like play a sound, and it's a little song, which they're very proud of because it plays a lot. It's like Chauncey's theme or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like unnaturally long, and he's watching this little pull string as it goes on the floor and then up the counter until the camera tilts up, and we see Chauncey underneath the towel that was sitting there, and he gets freaked out, and then he pisses all over himself on the ground.
Yeah, and then of course when he looks back, it's gone. So he's like, "Whoa, I guess the Molly's hitting extra hard today," or whatever.
Calm down, dude. You're just tripping.
Yeah, and then this man just he finishes his bathroom business. He lightly and gently wipes the front and back of his hands on the towels that he went upstairs to retrieve, and then just turns around.
And then just leaves.
Like, you went to get the towels. And just like, this is so unhinged.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like for me, that's why, I know you said you felt like the acting in this movie was atrocious, and I'm certainly not trying to like defend this. But I do honestly think a lot of it had to do with the writing, because I think even if you're a pretty good actor, it can be hard to, like, if your line in the script is, "Wait, cool, is that a jar of bugs?" Like, Meryl Streep couldn't make that work. I mean, you know?
that is true, but also the scene, what happens after he wipes his hand on the towels and leaves the bathroom without the towels doesn't change if he wipes his hand on the towels and then takes them out of there. And in fact, you could still play that whole thing for laughs, and that it's kind of gross. He just wipes his hand, his pee-covered hands on the towels. Right. And then he takes them, because what happens after that is the pull string's on the ground again, and he's like going to chase around a corner, and then he gets confronted with Chauncey, and Chauncey like turns into this big bear. He doesn't end up getting killed or anything he just falls over backwards. Yeah. He could have had the towels the whole time.
But I feel like that's a directing issue, because an actor isn't responsible for what props they're holding between different scenes and framings.
I mean, I guess that's fair. I just, like, there are also actors who, like, it's not necessarily a directorial thing to tell them to do this. The actor will just do it because, like, it makes sense to do it. Yeah. They're not being directed to do it. It's just that's what you would do as a human. He's been told to go upstairs. We find out later, by the way, like very quickly after this, because like maybe you're thinking, well, Curtis, shut up. He's tripping on Molly, so maybe he's just not remembering the house. No, he's fucking not. It's a baggie full of Claritin. His mom ends up coming over to the house because Jessica comes back home and finds them, and she's pissed, and she calls the mom, and she's like, "This isn't Molly, this is my Claritin." So he's not tripping. He's taken one Claritin. He's just a fucking idiot.
He's less congested, which means he's getting more oxygen to the brain.
Yeah, he should be thinking more clearly.
Exactly. He should be at 110%.
Anyway, and I'm not, obviously he's a very young actor. Yeah. Like probably in his 20s, maybe he's a teen, I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. But like, the point is like he's got a lot to learn. Like he's no method actor or whatever. So I'm not saying I'm expecting perfect acting, but also, like, yes, the directing and the script writing should be like you take the towels and everything like that. But if it doesn't say that, why would you not just take the towels? Because it doesn't change anything else about it. You could immediately drop them later and it's not going to change anything. No. But anyway.
It's just, I really feel like there was a lot of failure in the directing and the writing. I also think this is a movie that struggles a lot with over-explaining. There's a lot of exposition in this movie that's very unnecessary. And it kind of does that thing, we've talked about this before, where like you don't necessarily want to spoon feed the audience like every single thing, because that kind of takes the mystery out of the situation, and that can be difficult. But this one is also weird in that like it gives us a lot of information, but it also like still leaves a lot of questions unanswered because it's not a good cohesive story. Yeah. And so then it's like, okay, we're wasting so much time discovering information and putting together clues, and it doesn't even make sense. Like, the only reason that you got from A to B with that information is because you told the audience that that's what you got. Yeah. Like, that isn't the natural linear direction that anyone would take. Yeah. That's you basically talking directly to the audience and saying, because there were these drawings on the walls, I know how to get Alice back from the Never Ever. Yeah. But
no, and they do, like, I guess it's like the trope of, Alice goes missing at a certain point because she's been taken to the Never Ever. And Jessica's like fully believing that that's what's happened at this point, but Taylor doesn't believe that. She's just like, she ran away.
Right.
Because she hates you, and I hate you too.
Yeah.
You're not my real mom, kind of a thing.
No, my real mom is having a severe mental health breakdown, and we're just going to kind of gloss over that.
Yeah. But she doesn't believe Jessica when Jessica starts explaining this, but then this old lady, Gloria...
who was Jessica's babysitter as a kid, and she still lives in the area, so she kind of reunites with them. She
takes Taylor over to her house and starts explaining, and this is where we get, like, the majority of our information about how the Never Ever and imaginary friends work and everything. This woman has apparently dedicated her life to the study of imaginary friends, and, you know, every culture has them by different names and whatever.
And it's because of the experience that Jessica had when she was a kid, and the woman was her babysitter and saw this.
Yeah, so, I mean, she's basically exposition grandma. Like, that's her purpose in the movie. She's a little bit creepy, but she basically serves the point of explaining this.
Yep.
But anyway, Taylor doesn't believe Jessica, but then she willingly goes over to this old lady's house who she thought was like really creepy and weird before, but she just goes over there now. She explains all of this stuff, and because I guess she's written books on it, she's now fully bought into the idea of it.
She's like, okay, so there definitely are fairies.
Yes. So this is when, during the movie, I got up to go to the bathroom because I needed to go, and I told you, I was like, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I'm just gonna go. So I came back, and the thing that I had missed was, so we talked earlier that Alice was doing this scavenger hunt, and Jessica had taken a photo of it, and part of her like drawings on the walls in this room and everything were part of the scavenger hunt that she also was trying to do when she was a kid.
She basically discovered through her old childhood drawings that she had also done the scavenger
hunt. Right, and so the three of them now gather the things to do this scavenger hunt to complete the ritual. And so she goes to do this, and I had come back in after, I guess, she had stabbed her hand with a pair of scissors.
Yep.
Because part of the ritual, the scavenger hunt, was something that hurts
you.
That hurts you. And so she's sitting there, I sit back down, and there are all three of them in this basement crawl space thing trying to do this ritual, and it's not working. And then Jessica just starts going off on Taylor.
Yeah.
She's being like,
you're selfish, and
you're not a good daughter, and I hate you as well, and you know, whatever, and you're just like your mom who sucks. And then this blue flame ignites in the bowl,
and the door opens.
And this is what we're talking about with like over explaining and just hitting you over the head and spoon feeding you everything, because obviously what the ritual meant was something that like actually, like, on an emotional level, like mental level, hurt you, not necessarily physical pain.
Right.
It would have worked for Alice because she was so young,
and she was also like felt betrayed.
Yeah, exactly. So like it would have worked in that sense where she stabbed her hand, but in this sense, it had to be something that like actually hurt Jessica on that level. And you know, as an audience who has some level of media literacy, you could probably just pick up on that fact. But instead, Gloria's in the background and just leans forward and she's like, stabbing your hand was never going to work. You had to do something that really hurt you. And it's like,
obviously, It's just like they're so afraid at every turn that the audience isn't going to understand what they're saying. So it's like they have to look the camera directly in the eye, and they're like, it hurt because they have a contentious step-parent relationship.
Like, I fully left the movie to go to the bathroom, and I came back and I could have followed the thread. Yes. If they had already, like, if the last thing I saw was the flame lighting up or whatever, I would have been able to, like, you know, put this together of what happened or whatever. But like, no, they don't trust that I'm gonna be able to reason this out.
No,
they gotta do it. And then Gloria is the one kill of the entire movie. She gets in here and she basically snaps. We find out she's kind of a villain in this whole thing.
Yeah, she's like very disconnected with reality. Like, she spent so much time studying these things that she almost has kind of like an appreciation, or like she's in awe of it. So she's like, oh, I'm finally in a land of imagination where anything I can think of will come true, and we should all stay here and we'll all be happier. And so she's like she's not necessarily working with Chauncey, but she's just an unhinged person.
Yeah, so she's the way that the original door gets closed after the three of them get
She closes
and she's killed basically immediately after this.
Literally, she's killed. She's doing her little rant, and Taylor...
Come with me! Yes. And then a door opens and she gets ripped inside.
Yeah, and you just see blood come out from under the door. So we didn't even, see
you don't
how
even
she
see
died
her
or
get murdered.
anything.
Just blood pulls out.
Yeah, and that's literally the only death in the movie.
Yep.
Literally it.
And you don't honestly feel like anybody else is going to get killed.
No, not really.
No.
But
the closest they come is Taylor in another scene, and this is what I'm talking about, where they don't explain the rules enough of this.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene where Chauncey then starts acting like what are they called from A Weeping Angel?
Yeah.
He starts having to act like that for some reason.
Yeah, I guess it's just to build up the fear or whatever.
Yeah, it's just it's silly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not a great movie, as you can tell. We didn't feel good about it. I mean, I think it's... I don't even know that it's worth watching from a, so bad it's good standpoint.
No, it's not.
Because I am a so bad it's good horror movie lover. Yeah. And this, I don't think, does that. Because it takes itself too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not campy enough for it to be, a so bad it's good.
Yeah. And this is kind of the thing, I know we briefly mentioned this earlier, but this is kind of the issue that I think people have been having with Blumhouse recently. Yes. Is, they started out, they were kind of this indie studio, they were doing something different, and they were bringing, more original ideas to mainstream horror, which is something that we were desperately missing, because we were deep in a lot of remakes and franchises and things like that. They're responsible for, Insidious and, all these great movies. And then they've gotten so famous now that I think they're kind of falling into the trap of the other production studios, and it's why people don't like them, because they're just trying to make money, and so there's kind of this very formulaic... There's a lack of risk-taking. I mean, even the idea of making PG-13 horror, and again, this is not to disrespect PG-13 horror. Sometimes it can be very successful. But everyone knows that PG-13 horror, one of the main motivators for creating it, is so that more audiences can see the movie, so that it will be more financially successful.
I mean, this is, I think, a wider discussion even than just, Blumhouse. We can talk about it because we're really big horror fans. But, I also really like Marvel movies and stuff. Mm-hmm. I know we watched all of them in, order. It was after Endgame had released.
Yeah, I haven't seen everything.
But we kind of fell off. But part of the reason for that, right, is the movies haven't been as good. And I think a part of that discussion is that Disney and Marvel Studios have been trying to make the movies as appealing to as many people as possible. And when you do that, you create generic, forgettable movies that aren't that good, instead of making a movie that is tailored more specifically to a certain audience, but that audience is really going to like it.
Right.
And while you're not going to please everyone, you're never going to do that, but you might get some of those people who wouldn't think they would normally like it to come in anyway. And regardless, the movie will still be successful because, the people who really want to see it will be happy that it got made and want to see it and everything like that.
And I think that's what's missing now, is that it seems like they've kind of fallen into that same trap of just how can we just make a movie that will...
We're just cranking out movies, seats,
And they're also kind of getting back into the franchise territory. They were responsible for The Exorcist Believer, which was so poorly received. They were also part of the team that did the very controversial, depending on who you ask, love it or hate it, requel of the Halloween, the new trilogy. So these are things that are highly controversial and leaning negative for the majority of audiences. And I think, I haven't really seen something from Blumhouse in several years that gets me really excited, like some of their earlier things did. Yeah. And I think this is another example. I think when you really plot out why this movie came out when it did, I think it's because we're coming off of Megan being a a pretty surprising hit that people really liked and that got a lot of attention. They're trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle, but it didn't work, No,
I mean, Megan was like way more successful.
Because Megan was camp.
Yes, it didn't take itself seriously.
Yeah.
It was an enjoyable time. We watched that one at home. We'll do it on the show at some point. But no, that one was like genuinely pretty good.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they've had some stinkers recently. Night Swim came out this year, and that was
bother seeing
super poorly received.
I remember seeing the trailer for that when we were going to see. I don't remember what we were seeing in theaters, but it came up, and I was like, "What the fuck? What's
even going to be about?" Yeah, I actually heard, because I didn't see it, but I did hear actually some kind of similar criticisms. Now that I'm thinking about it, of what we said about Imaginary, which is like they have this little spark of a concept, but it's not really enough to support a movie, and so then they have to like create this sort of overly convoluted plot that requires a lot of exposition, and it ends up like not really having a good pace or a good tone for that reason.
It almost makes me think a lot of these things, Night Swim, Imaginary, whatever, might actually do a lot better if they were like short films or like YouTube,
or like an anthology kind of thing, like something like the Trick or Treat movie, where like it is one movie, but there's kind of a series of interconnected stories.
Something like that might actually.
But anyway, I mean, I think we're at a point where we're probably ready to wrap up. We do want to go over our ratings.
Yeah, we'll do that really quick, and then I think that's going to be it. We could talk more about it, but it's honestly just going to be dragging it more. I have other notes, but it boils down to things that I found honestly funny about the movie, not scary, and whether or not those were intentionally supposed to be funny.
Yeah. And I don't know. I know we always say when we watch these, like, it's a matter of personal taste, right? So, like, I'm sure there is an audience out there for Imaginary, but I'm honestly kind of having a hard time coming up with who that might be. Like, I don't think that the casual horror fan is gonna love it. No. I don't think the like devoted horror fan is gonna like it at all. I think that younger teens like who might be trying to get into horror would probably find it cringy. So like I don't know who it's for. It's
like almost a step up from like the Disney Channel Halloween movie specials. It's like a step up from that, where like this does have like some scarier stuff in it, but it's not like full blown. It's not Michael Myers like dismembering a guy or something like that, and people having sex and
doing drugs.
They're
only doing Claritin.
They're doing Claritin or whatever. So it's like a step up. It is like the most describable as a PG-13 movie you could probably imagine. I don't honestly remember like curse words being in this.
I don't really think there were. I think there was maybe a damn it here or there.
Yeah. The drugs that get brought up it's Claritin. It gets revealed to be Claritin, so it's not even drugs.
It's allergy meds, But anyway, so of course we're continuing our cycle. We did both rate it independently across the 5 categories that we use, and then came up with our individual numbers and then our group number.
If you have been doing that as well, I commend you. Play along at home and you can give off your rating.
And again, if you need a reminder, that's scares, performance, conception, visuals, and X Factor.
Yeah. We'll get like actual things made and maybe we can like
share it.
Figure out some way to share like a Google Drive.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But anyway, mine out of all of those categories was a 4 even.
Yeah, just a 4. You came up with a 4, which is way more generous than me. I landed on a 2.6 for this movie.
Yeah. So that means that our official Love at First Fright score for Imaginary 2024 is a 3.6 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I know you said that is a generous score, and I agree with you, but I also think when I was trying to rate it, I was also kind of in my brain comparing it to some of the worst movies I've ever seen.
That's fair. I mean, I'll be the first to say that my rating's probably tainted by the fact that, like, again, at an hour into the movie, I was ready for it to be done, and I was legitimately, like, annoyed that I had another 45 minutes of this.
And I think that's fair. I think for me, I was just thinking about other, bad horror movies I've watched, like, at home or whatever, and feeling like, I can't give it the same. Like, there are movies out there that I would give a 0, and this one doesn't compare to those, so, but in the grand scheme of things, 3.6. I mean, that's not a good movie. That's not a good.
It's not worth your time. Once it hits streaming, don't bother with it, guys.
Unless you're just so curious, or this is a concept that you feel like might be interesting to you because of, you know, whatever personal interest you have with horror. Like, that's really the only time I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. And I guess you want to talk about what we're going to do next time?
Yeah, I'm excited for this one because we've seen it before.
Yes.
I'm excited to watch it again because it is one of my favorite horror movies of the found footage variety.
And this is a favorite of our friend group as well.
Yes,
this has been highly suggested.
Yes. This one comes recommended, suggested for the podcast and everything. Super excited to do it. We are going to be doing As Above, So Below.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with it...
Don't spoil anything. I mean, you already said it's found footage.
It's found footage, and it has to do with, if you look it up, the cover of it, it has to do with the catacombs underneath Paris. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Watch this dang movie.
We've recommended you watch movies before you see or listen to the episode before. Do that for this one. Yeah,
because we don't want to spoil it for you, because I do think some of its charm is in the plot twist.
Yes, the plot twist, some of the stuff they do, it's very, very good. So I have goosebumps now just kind of talking about it. It's a fun movie.
You've got 2 weeks.
2 weeks, watch it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're banished to the never ever.
To the never ever. Oh, can I please, just my favorite line of the whole movie.
Yeah, go, please.
My favorite line of the whole movie.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Was when Alice finally stands up to Chauncey,
so
and Chauncey's like, "But we're friends." And then this little kid's rant was due. She goes, "You were never my friend. Never, ever."
God
Mic
his ass.
Drop.
God his ass.
She might as well have put an L on her forehead.
Yeah.
Like, it was so sassy, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you were never my friend. Never, ever.
Oh, boy.
Is that all you got?
Yeah, that's all I got. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore.
Let's go do something fun.
I want to go do literally anything else. I'm going to go do taxes.
I did that this week.
Yeah, I need to do it still. Anyway, that's all we got for you this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to reach out and talk with us, where can they find us at?
You can find us at First Fright Pod on Instagram, X, all the social medias. We also have a Facebook page, which is Love at First Fright, or you can find us online. We have a website. You can also send us an email if you want to send us any feedback, suggestions, send us your thoughts about Imaginary. And that email address is firstfrightpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, super excited to hear from people. We're getting some recommendations coming in now. Like we said, As Above, So Below is one. We've done some in the past. We actually have a couple more on the list here that we're planning on doing as time goes on. But super excited to get to those. We love hearing from people. But anyway, that's pretty much all we got for you this time. So, what is it?
Scare well. Scare well, and you were never my friend. Never, ever.
Bye! Flipped it on them. They won't know what to do.